Hello, everyone. Another edition of the Auto Market, and today we're continuing a little bit more on Greenland and what's this crazy stuff going on with the Trump appointing a new envoy to try to coerce um, Greenland into its agenda of annexing Greenland, which is currently a protectorate of Denmark. Now, I'm just giving you my personal opinion as someone who has some critical background in international relations for my both my my bachelor's and my master's graduate studies work, and someone who's been involved in international relations and politics. In my view, the Danish control of Greenland is in some serious trouble because Denmark is using the approach that you'd use to countries which respect international law. To countries that expect international law, the approach that Denmark is using is perfectly legitimate. Assert yourself, assert your sovereignty verbally, and that should be the end of that. Everybody goes their own way. Somebody makes an offer and you reject it, and in international law, everybody respects sovereignty. Everybody respects, the laws of civilized nations. But what we're dealing with is, the Trump administration recently already said that, okay, the United States is not about idealism, it's not about its policy that it embraced after World War II concerning the constructive role of the United States in the world as a leading democracy to respect and champion international law. Trump says they're not about this anymore. They are about authoritarianism, fascism, embracing Mein Kampf, embracing the similar approaches to fascism that was embraced by Hitler. And I believe there was one point where Trump expressed an admiration of the Hitler's the fascist Nazi government in Germany during World War II. So in the face of that, we have a Denmark. So Denmark is is not only has about 20,000 troops, and this is what I mean. This is what when you're dealing with a fascist, they don't deal with stuff like, oh, don't invade my country. That does not hold water with them. They deal with the realpolitik of power. And in the fascist mind, Denmark is no threat to them. You got 20,000 troops. They do have the last time they fought in a war was apparently the 17th century. They substantively capitulated in World War I and World War II, so they're no threat. And that's how the Trump administration is viewing their claim to Greenland. So as I've said and mentioned in a previous video, um, you know, Greenland is in, Greenlandic sovereignty as far as Denmark is in serious trouble when we're dealing with this fascist mentality south of the border. So, in my view, the only way that Greenland can survive this and not be seen to be a pushover for U.S. annexation is if they at least temporarily um, join Canada, not relinquish Danish control, but to add a layer of sovereignty by saying, okay, we're going to continue to be have a relationship with Denmark. We're going to continue to have the head of state being Denmark, but we are going to enter into confederation or negotiate a confederation with Canada to become some sort of provincial status of some kind, so that we are under the um, co-protection of the Canadian government. Because if Greenland elects to become, let's say, a province, then all of a sudden, where Trump, would be not just simply threatening Denmark as a weak military adversary with only 20,000 troops. He would be directly challenging the sovereignty of a Canadian territory. So that is how the people of Greenland need to start thinking about critically before it's too late for them and too late for us, because we don't want in Canada Greenland being taken over by the United States. That is not going to be good for us. They'll just sweep up, take over the north, and sweep us up not too distant in the future after they sweep up Greenland. So we need to work together, people of Greenland, people of Canada. This has already started with Carney exchanging consular offices, but that's far not enough when we're dealing with a fascist mind that is increasingly getting aggressive, that is going down to Venezuela and using it as a pretext of so-called drugs, which hardly any drugs come from Venezuela, United States. Negligible amount, use as a pretext to seize Venezuelan oil. So this is exactly the Hitler playbook. So what do you think about this? Do you think that Greenland should just wait and see and just continue along its path of verbally saying we don't want to be taken over by the United States? Or do you think that Greenland needs to be taking some serious action? Because Greenland, in my view, cannot rely on NATO articles to say that, okay, well, we're in NATO, Greenland is in NATO, so if the United States invades us, NATO's going to protect us. No, well, NATO is the big funder is the United States. So I don't think Greenland can be thinking that that NATO is going to start picking a fight with the United States when they're funding them. So I don't think that NATO is going to matter much with their sovereignty. So in my view, the people of Greenland, the people of Denmark need to start thinking in practical terms. You need to accelerate whatever relationship they're trying to build with Canada. You need to seriously think of, one alternative is a common market with Canada, but I don't think there's going to be much difference with Trump. It has to be joint Danish and Canadian flags on on Greenland. There needs to be a Canadian sovereign presence in Greenland to change the discussion. What the people of Greenland need to do is that clearly Trump is not respecting them, and clearly this is why he's being so, and this is exactly what Hitler used to do. Go around before he invaded countries, talk a bunch of propaganda, incendiary propaganda, make up stories, make up pretexts, and then he would invade. That's exactly what Hitler did. Same thing he's doing Trump's doing in Venezuela. Fabricate a bunch of stuff, say a bunch of things to rationalize and legitimate why you need to invade a country. It doesn't have anything to do with reality, and then you invade it. So these are not just idle threats. Trump has been quite open about what he wants to do. His hegemonic stand is that he now wants to control the Western Hemisphere, and now he's going to, based upon the old Monroe Doctrine, and now he's going about trying to consolidate his power and, divide up the world into United States sphere, the Russian sphere, and the Chinese sphere. And this is why China and Russia, Venezuela can't count on Russia saving them, because this is exactly what Russia wants. Russia wants to have back Ukraine. They want to have a Russian control of influence. And they said, okay, well, if Trump is going to give us Ukraine and give us what we want, we'll give them Venezuela. And the same thing is going to be happening where so the whole Western, anybody in the Western Hemisphere that cannot stand up for itself, including Greenland militarily, is going to face annexation or colonial control of some kind. So that is my take on Greenland again. What do you think about this? I think that, in my view, if I was somebody in Greenland, I would rather be independent. I'd rather be with Denmark. I'd rather the status quo. This is what I respect. But from a practical standpoint, Trump is not respecting the status quo, and they need to change the narrative. And changing the narrative, in my view, would be different if they joined Canada. If they became some type of province of Canada, then that would change the type of discourse the type of belligerence that Trump is, exuding against Denmark relative to Greenland. That's what people really need to do. They need to change the narrative. They need to figure things out quickly. They need to figure out that no matter how much they talk and how much they protest verbally, it's not going to make any difference to a fascist. A fascist don't care about what you say. Fascists care about what you are doing, and they have to think about things critically in ways which go well beyond what they are doing, what they are saying, and what Denmark is saying. That is no interest to a fascist. There was no interest to Hitler. There's no interest to Mussolini, and Franco's Spain is not going to be of any interest to the new incarnation of fascism. So this is what needs to be thought about. What do you think about this? Do you think that Denmark and Greenland should just keep on talking, or do you think that by joining Canada, Greenland, that's going to change the argument and protect us as well? In my view, we like I said, we can't afford to be Greenland to be taken over controlled by the United States. So it's in Canadian interest for that not to happen. And the way for that not to happen is for us Canadians to extend an offer of after a vote, of course. In my view, there should be a plebiscite on this. If the Greenland people want, if the Denmark people want, do you want, just like what happened in Newfoundland, do you want to be at least temporarily a part of Canada, and as well as maintaining your status with Greenland? There needs to be some type of straw vote like that as a prelude to, them not wanting to be annexed. So that's my take. What do you think? Thanks for watching another edition of The Other Market on our continuing exploration of the crisis in Greenland over continued threats of annexation by the Trump regime. Thanks for watching.